Does it ever feel like you're just juggling way too many balls? Trying frantically to keep everything up in the air, but inevitably dropping most of them.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of being overwhelmed by constant demands, endless emails, just information overload. It's pretty universal these days, I think.
Right. It leaves you feeling stretched so thin, maybe even ineffective. Well, today, we're aiming to cut through some of that noise. We want to reveal a surprisingly simple truth that might just change everything.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the really transformative insights from Gary Keller and Jay Papasan's book, The One Thing, the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results.
And what's so fascinating here, I think, is how this core concept really challenges almost all the conventional wisdom we have about productivity, about achievement. Well, it argues for this really clear path forward. It suggests that, true extraordinary success isn't actually about doing more or even doing everything well.
Yeah.
It's about focusing intensely, really intensely, on just one single most important task.
So less is more, basically.
In a very focused way, yes. It's about finding that clear path, not just piling on more effort and hoping for the best.
That's compelling. I think a lot of us can definitely relate to feeling stretched thin. So, okay, what does this actually mean for you listening right now, whether you're trying to crush it in your career or maybe improve your relationships or hit some big personal goals?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Exactly. We're going to explore how this single, pretty powerful idea can really simplify your decisions, streamline your efforts, and hopefully dramatically improve your outcomes.
And we'll dig into some cool analogies, too, like the domino effect you mentioned earlier.
Right, and we'll debunk some of those common kind of ingrained lies about success that might actually be holding you back without you even realizing it.
And then get practical.
Totally practical. We'll dive into the tools, the commitments you need to actually make this work to achieve those, extraordinary results the title talks about. So, yeah, get ready to maybe shift your perspective on how real achievement happens. The core idea, the one thing and its power. Okay, so let's start right at the core. The fundamental principle that this whole philosophy hangs on, it's summed up really well by this old Russian proverb.
Ah, yeah, the one about the rabbits.
Exactly. If you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one. It sounds, almost deceptively simple, doesn't it? Like something your grandpa might say.
It really does. But think about how much it runs counter to how we operate today.
Totally. In this hyper-connected, always-on world,
Yeah.
we're kind of conditioned to believe more is better.
Right.
That we should be great multitaskers, or that having these endless to-do lists is somehow a sign of, being productive.
And that proverb just cuts right through that. It perfectly encapsulates the book's central argument. Real success, the kind that truly moves the needle, doesn't come from spreading yourself thin across a dozen different goals.
It comes from focus.
Intense focus, pouring your energy, your unwavering attention onto a single most important task at any given moment. The book basically argues that this kind of singular focus, the simplicity, is actually the key to handling complexity.
That's interesting. Simplicity handles complexity.
Yeah, it lets you achieve a depth of success that's just impossible if you're scattered. It's about concentrated effort, not just diffused activity. Recognizing that trying to do everything often means you accomplish nothing that really matters in the long run.
To really hammer this home, they use this fantastic metaphor. You mentioned it before, the domino effect.
Yes, it's not just a cute analogy. They present it as the actual mechanism for how extraordinary results get built.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, the core message is, again, surprisingly simple.
Yeah.
Success is sequential, not simultaneous. Think about it. You do one thing right, and that impacts the next thing, which then influences the one after that, and so on. You're creating this powerful chain reaction.
Instead of trying to push all the dominoes over at once.
Exactly. Most people mistakenly think big success requires these massive simultaneous efforts across many fronts. But the book argues it's the opposite. You line them up and knock down the first one.
And they give this incredible real-world example, right? Domino Day?
Yeah, in the Netherlands back in 2009, Leeuwarden, get this, over 4.49 million dominoes fell in this single mesmerizing cascade.
Wow. 4.49 million.
It's just a staggering visual for how one tiny initial action, just tipping that very first domino, can set off this huge, exponentially larger chain reaction. It creates something massive.
And it wasn't about how hard they pushed the last domino.
Not at all. It was all about the precise placement and that single focused push on the first one. That's where the leverage is.
So connecting that back to life.
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? Life doesn't usually line up all our dominoes for us, nice and neat, saying, hey, start here for maximum impact.
Huh. Yeah, unfortunately not.
So highly successful people, according to the book, they recognize this. And they actively work against that chaos. Every single day, they consciously, deliberately line up their priorities again. They find that lead domino.
The one thing.
The one thing for that day or that project. The one thing that, if they do it, will make everything else either easier or maybe even totally unnecessary. And then
They whack away at it.
they whack away at it until it falls. And this isn't like a one-time planning session. It's not a quarterly review thing. It's a daily conscious act. Relentless prioritization.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really is about that persistent, focused effort compounded over time. Think about anything significant, acquiring deep knowledge, developing a real skill, achieving something truly remarkable, building wealth.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Never. It all happens sequentially. One thing built upon the last, consistently over a long period. It's the ultimate anti-quick fix strategy, really. It takes patience, a trust in the process.
That's a big mindset shift for people who are always looking for the next big leap, isn't it? This one domino at a time thing forces you towards like sustained, almost boring discipline sometimes.
It absolutely does, but that's where the extraordinary results come from. The compounding effect is just huge. It's not just about efficiency. It's about understanding that most big breakthroughs come from that relentless focus on the next small step.
Internalizing that the magic is in consistently tipping that one domino, day after day.
Precisely. And this isn't just theory. Success leaves clues, as they say. This principle plays out all the time in the real world. Business, personal growth.
So where do we see this in action? Let's look at some examples.
Okay, well, think about hugely successful companies. What do you often find at their core, especially when they started?
One main thing.
Almost always. Extraordinarily successful companies often started with, or are still primarily known for, one core product or service. Think about Colonel Sanders.
KFC. The secret recipe.
Exactly. He didn't launch with a 50-item menu. He perfected that one thing. Or the Adolf Coors Company, amazing story. They had something like 1,500% growth between 47 and 67, focusing on just one product, brewed in one brewery, distributed regionally. They resisted expanding for decades.
Wow. That takes discipline.
It does. Intel,
Yeah.
Their massive revenue comes overwhelmingly from microprocessors, even though they've dabbled elsewhere. And Starbucks. Well, we all know what Starbucks' one thing is.
Coffee, the experience.
Right. That intense focus on the coffee experience, down to the details, let them dominate. That singular focus wasn't a limitation. It was the launch pad for their massive growth.
And Apple is a really interesting case study here too, right? Because they didn't just stick to one product forever.
No, they're dynamic. But what they did consistently was shift their one thing over time while maintaining intense focus on whatever that current one thing was.
So like from Macs to iMacs.
Exactly. Then iTunes, then iPods, iPhones, iPads even started competing for that top spot. But here's the key. As each new golden gadget took the spotlight, the other products didn't just disappear. They were still refined.
But the focus shifted.
The intense focus and marketing energy shifted, and that current one thing created this well-documented halo effect. People love their iPods, so they became more likely to buy a Mac.
Ah, okay. So even in diverse companies, there's often one central innovation driving the momentum.
Usually, yes. And this focus isn't just about products. It also raises a really important question. Who actually goes it alone?
The self-made myth.
Precisely. The book argues strongly against it. Key relationships, mentors, external support, these are often crucial. Sometimes they are the one thing that unlocks someone's potential.
That's a great point. They share some amazing stories challenging that rugged individualist idea, like Sam Walton.
The Walmart founder, his father-in-law, L.S. Robson, gave him the initial $20,000 loan for his first store. And then later, secretly provided another $20 for a really pivotal expansion lease.
What about that? Who knows?
Exactly. His empire might never have happened. Or think about Albert Einstein. We picture him as this solitary genius, right?
Yes.
But he had Max Talmud, his first mentor, who introduced him to key texts in math and science when he was just 10, guided him for years. That mentorship was the intellectual one thing that sparked his early curiosity.
And Oprah?
Oprah credits her father for providing stability, kind of saving her. And professionally, it was Jeffrey D. Jacobs who pushed her to set up Harpo Productions, her own company, instead of just being talent for hire. A single strategic move that completely changed her trajectory.
Wow. Even the Beatles.
Right. Lennon and McCartney had their legendary partnership, sure, but in the studio, they had George Martin, the fifth Beatle.
He filled in the gaps.
Totally. His musical expertise, writing arrangements, playing keyboard parts, he bridged the gap between their raw talent and the sophisticated sound they wanted. These weren't just supportive people. They were often the critical factor, the one thing that amplified talent into something extraordinary.
It also seems like passion plays a huge role in this focus.
Absolutely. There's this powerful, virtuous cycle the book talks about. Passion makes you willing to put in a disproportionate amount of time and effort into something.
You just love doing it.
Right. And that deep commitment naturally leads to faster skill development. Better skills lead to better results, and better results. Well, that usually increases your enjoyment, which reinforces the passion, motivating even more time and effort.
It becomes a self-feeding loop.
Exactly. The one thing here is finding that sweet spot where your passion intersects with something that produces real results.
Like Pat Matthews, the painter.
Yeah, a great example. An amazing impressionist painter. How did he turn his passion into a profession? By committing to paint one painting a day. That single, consistent act built his skill, his reputation, everything over time.
Or Angelo Amorco, the Italian tour guide.
His success came from a singular passion for Italy and wanting to share it. His one thing was just immersing himself in the culture and sharing that love. And Gilbert Tuaboni, incredible story.
The runner who survived the genocide in Burundi.
Yes. Came to Texas, became an all-American runner, and then co-founded a charity, the Gazelle Foundation, to bring clean water to Burundi, their main fundraiser, Run for the Water.
Wow. His passion for running literally defined his life's path.
From competition to survival to college to a profession and finally to philanthropy, his one thing transformed from something personal into this incredibly impactful tool.
So this all comes back to that counterintuitive idea of going small.
Right. It means deliberately ignoring all the things you could do, all the shiny objects, the minor tasks, to focus intensely on what you should do.
Because not everything matters equally.
Exactly. In fact, most things don't matter much at all if you're aiming for extraordinary results. You have to choose.
And the trap is trying to do too much.
That's the path most people take, isn't it? Adding more and more, thinking quantity equals quality. But the book argues that just leads to missed deadlines, disappointment, high stress, long hours, no sleep, poor health.
You end up accomplishing too little of what actually counts.
Precisely. The core message is stark. Achievements add up through subtraction, not addition. You need fewer things done for more effect, not more things done with mediocre or even negative side effects.
So go as small as possible. Filter relentlessly.
Until you're staring at just one thing. That, the book says, is the entire point. Find the needle in the haystack and then focus only on the needle. 2. Debunking the lies. Misconceptions that derail us.
Okay, so we've built this strong case for focusing on the one thing. But like you said, if it's that simple, why isn't everyone doing it? What trips us up?
Yes. The lies. These are the sort of invisible forces, these deeply ingrained misconceptions we often believe without even realizing it, that actively sabotage our efforts.
They're seductive, maybe?
Very much so. Let's pull back the curtain on the first one, and I think this one gets almost everyone. The dangerous idea that everything matters equally, that everything on our overflowing to-do list somehow holds the same weight.
Oh, yeah. That feels familiar.
It's insidious, right, because it feeds into our tendency to feel productive just by being busy. But think about it. Equality is great for justice, for human rights, but in the world of results, things are never equal.
Some tasks have way more impact than others.
Exactly. But when you combine this false belief in equality with an overwhelming sense of urgency, I have to do it all, NOW, it leads to reactive decision-making. You just start grabbing tasks randomly.
And the best decision gets traded for any decision.
That's the quote from the book. Your energy gets scattered, your success gets undermined. You end up busy, sure, but not truly productive.
It makes me think of that Thoreau quote. It's not enough to be busy. So are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?
Perfect quote for this. It's that crucial distinction. We can check off dozens of low-impact items, feel like we did a lot, but if it wasn't focused on what really moves the needle, it wasn't productive in the way that leads to extraordinary results.
So to-do lists are the enemy.
Well, traditional to-do lists often are. They tend to be long, disorganized, kind of democratic, everything shouts for attention. Success lists, the book argues, are the opposite. They're short, they're hierarchical, ordered by priority, and they point you in one specific direction. towards your one thing.
This sounds like the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Exactly. That's where it comes in. A concept a lot of people know of, but maybe don't deeply apply. Joseph Duran really popularized it after noticing Vilfredo Pareto's observation about wealth distribution in Italy.
That 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people.
Right. And Duran realized this principle applied everywhere. The core idea is a minority of your causes, your inputs, your effort usually leads to the majority of your results, outputs, or rewards.
The vital few versus the trivial many.
Precisely. And the numbers, 80-20, they're just a guideline. It could be 90 or 10, 9-5-5, even more extreme. The fundamental truth is the inequality of effort for results. Extraordinary results come from far fewer actions than most people think.
It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right few things.
That's it. And the book takes this a critical step further with something they call extreme Pareto.
Okay, what's that?
It's not just finding the top 20%. It's applying the 80-20 rule repeatedly. So you find the 20% that matters most from your list. Then within that 20%, you find it's 20%, and you keep going.
Drilling down layer by layer.
Exactly, until you isolate the single most important thing. It's a dynamic filtering process. What's the 20% of the 20% of the 20%? You keep asking until you hit that essential one.
That sounds intense.
It is, but it's powerful. The author, Gary Keller, shares this great story. Back in 2001, he challenged his team, brainstormed 100 ways to get industry recognition. They narrowed it to 10. Then, through intense debate, applying this extreme Pareto idea, they chose just one.
Which was?
He would write a book on becoming an elite performer in their industry. 8 years later, that one book was a national bestseller, part of a series selling over 1 million copies, totally changing their company's image. One idea out of 100 found through relentless focus.
Oh, that's leverage.
Huge leverage. Or his personal example of learning guitar. He asked the amazing guitarist Eric Johnson for advice. Johnson said, learn scales. Keller chose one scale, the minor blues scale, and focused on that. And he said that one scale just unlocked the world of rock and roll for him.
So hyperfocus acts like a strategic filter.
Exactly. It's not about what you can do. It's about what you must do for maximum impact. And honestly, it's liberating. It frees you from the tyranny of all those trivial choices. Your effort becomes a laser, not a floodlight.
Okay, that makes sense. Line number 1. Everything matters equally debunked. What's the next big lie that trips us up?
Ugh, this one's a classic. Line number 2, multitasking.
Oof. Yeah. I think many of us, myself included, kind of pride ourselves on being good multitaskers.
Yeah.
It feels like a badge of honor in our busy culture.
We really do, don't we? But this deep dive suggests it's a total myth.
Seriously, no multitasking.
The science is incredibly clear, and it's tough for people to accept. Clifford Nass at Stanford did this research back in 2009 with hundreds of students. He wanted to see how well these self-proclaimed multitaskers actually performed.
Yeah.
The results were stunning. The high multitaskers were outperformed on every measure. Nass found they were basically suckers for irrelevancy, easily distracted, couldn't filter information. His conclusion was blunt. Multitaskers were just lousy at everything.
Wow, lousy at everything, but they thought they were good at it.
Exactly. That's the dangerous part, the cognitive illusion.
Yeah.
The book makes a good distinction here. What we call multitasking is usually just rapid task switching.
Like juggling. You're only handling one ball at a time, really.
Precisely. You catch one, throw it, catch the next. It looks like you're doing multiple things at once, but you're not. And every time you switch tasks mentally, there's a switching cost.
Meaning?
It takes time and mental energy to disengage from one task and re-engage with another. It taxes your brain, depletes your cognitive resources, leads to more errors, and reduces the quality of your work on both tasks.
And the danger goes beyond just work productivity, right?
Oh, absolutely. Matt Richtel's Pulitzer-winning series, Driven to Distraction, really highlighted this. Distracted driving, texting, talking on the phone.
It causes so many accidents.
A staggering amount. Something like 16% of all traffic fatalities, nearly 500,000 injuries a year. And get this, even just having an idle phone conversation while driving can reduce your focus by 40%. That's similar cognitive impairment to being legally drunk.
That is sobering. Wow.
And think about personal relationships. Author Dave Crenshaw talks about giving people segmented attention, half listening while checking your phone. The switching cost there is emotional connection.
Yeah, we've all seen that couple at dinner, one person texting under the table.
Yeah.
It really undermines the connection.
It absolutely does. So the takeaway is clear. Distraction is natural. We all get distracted. But multitasking as a strategy, it takes a huge toll on our choices, leads to mistakes, creates stress, and ultimately sabotages our results.
So the solution is Figure out what matters most right now and give it your undivided attention.
That's the essence of it, one thing at a time.
Okay, so we've tackled the myth of equal importance and the myth of multitasking. These are things we try to do. But what about that little voice inside that says, you just need more discipline? Is that another lie?
It is, in the way we usually think about it.
Yeah.
Lie number 3, a disciplined life. The idea that success requires this constant, ironclad, always-on state of discipline.
Which sounds exhausting.
Right. But the book reframes this beautifully. The truth is, we probably don't need more discipline than we already have. We just need to direct it and manage it much better.
How so?
The argument is that achieving something big isn't a marathon of disciplined action that requires endless willpower. Instead, it's more like a short race, a sprint, fueled by discipline just long enough for habit to kick in and take over.
So discipline is the starter motor for habit.
That's a great way to put it. When we say, I need more discipline, what we often really mean is, I need the habit of doing this thing. And we only need enough discipline to build that habit.
So those super disciplined people we admire.
They aren't superhuman. They've simply, often one at a time, trained a handful of really powerful, high-leverage habits into their lives. Once something is a habit, it takes way less willpower, way less conscious effort. It runs on autopilot.
And there's something really freeing about that idea, isn't there? If you aim your discipline at building the right habit, the most impactful one.
It actually gives you license to be less disciplined in other areas that don't matter as much. Once that key behavior is routine, automatic, life gets simpler. You know what you have to do well, and you can relax a bit elsewhere.
You conserve that limited willpower.
Exactly, for when you really need it. And there's science backing this up. University College London did research in 2009 looking at exactly how long it takes to form a new habit.
Wasn't there that popular 21-day myth?
Yeah, that's largely busted. They found it takes an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. And the range was huge, anywhere from 18 days to 254 days.
Wow, 66 days on average. So stick with it longer than you think.
Definitely don't give up after 3 weeks. Consistency over time is key. And even better, Australian researchers, Oaten and Cheng, found this amazing halo effect from building habits.
Halo effect.
Yeah. Students who successfully built one positive habit, like exercising regularly, spontaneously reported improvements in other areas too. Less stress, less impulsive spending, better eating habits, even drinking less alcohol or smoking less.
So getting one good habit locks in other benefits too.
It seems so. Sustain discipline long enough on one high-leverage habit, and it becomes easier. And it makes other positive changes easier, too. It's like a foundational domino for personal growth.
Okay, this is good stuff. What's lie number 4?
Lie number 4, willpower is always on will call. The assumption that willpower is this infinite resource, always available whenever we need to summon it.
Yeah, I think we often act like that. I'll just power through.
We do, but it's a dangerous myth. The reality is, willpower is a limited but renewable resource. Think of it like a phone battery.
It drains with use throughout the day.
Exactly. And it needs to be recharged through rest, through proper fuel, like good food. Understanding this is absolutely critical for timing your most important work.
Because if you try to tackle your one thing when your willpower battery is low,
you're just setting yourself up for failure, or at least making it way harder than it needs to be.
The classic illustration of this is the marshmallow test, right?
The famous Stanford marshmallow test with Walter Mischel, late 60s, early 70s. 4-year-olds offered one treat now, or 2 treats if they could just wait 15 minutes for the researcher to come back.
And most couldn't wait.
Not for long. On average, they held out for less than 3 minutes. Only about 3 out of 10 kids managed to delay gratification and get the 2 treats.
But the really mind-blowing part came later, didn't it, when they tracked these kids over decades?
That's where it gets profound. Mischel and his team followed these kids for 30-plus years, and the results were just stunning. The high delayers, the kids who waited.
They get better in life.
Significantly better across the board. Higher academic achievement, SAT scores averaged 210 points higher, greater self-worth, better stress management, fewer behavioral problems.
Well, and the low delayers.
They faced higher rates of obesity, addiction issues, financial difficulties later in life. It dramatically showed the predictive power of being able to delay gratification, of having that self-control.
So willpower matters. A lot.
It really does. And the brain science explains why it depletes. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus, planning, impulse control, all that higher level stuff, it consumes a huge amount of energy, like 1/5 of the calories we burn. And here's the kicker. It's the last in, first out part of the brain. It's the first part to suffer when resources get low, when you're hungry, tired, stressed.
Just goes offline, basically.
Pretty much, its function gets impaired, which is why you make worse decisions when you're depleted.
Like those Israeli parole judges. That study was wild.
Right. The default judgment study, they analyzed over 1,000 parole hearings. The chances of getting parole peaked early in the morning and right after breaks around 65%. They plummeted throughout the session, hitting near zero by the end before the next break.
So the judges just got tired and defaulted to the safe decision.
Exactly. Denying parole was the easier, less mentally taxing option when their cognitive resources, their willpower, were drained. They didn't have the mental energy left to carefully weigh complex cases.
Okay, so this brings it back to us. What are our default settings when willpower is low?
That's the crucial question the book poses. Do you reach for carrots or chips? Are you up for focusing on hard work, or do you cave to the easiest distraction? Do you make good choices or default to easier, often less productive ones?
And the key is?
Prioritize your one thing for when your willpower is highest. Usually that's earlier in the day after good sleep, good food. Don't fight your natural energy cycles. Work with them strategically.
Makes sense. Okay, on to lie number 5. This one feels provocative. A balanced life. The book calls the pursuit of work-life balance bunk and an unattainable pipe dream. That's pretty strong language.
It is strong, especially today when balance is held up as this ultimate ideal. But the argument is really compelling.
Well, what's the argument?
Basically that seeking true purpose, meaning significance, the things that drive a fulfilling life almost inherently leads to an out-of-balance existence, at least temporarily.
Because achieving something extraordinary requires intense focus.
Exactly. It requires disproportionate attention and time on one thing. And by definition, that means time and energy away from other things. The book puts it bluntly. Magic happens at the extremes, not in the middle.
So trying to keep everything perfectly balanced all the time leads to mediocrity.
That's the idea. You end up shortchanging everything because you never fully commit at the extremes where the breakthroughs happen. You have to make trade-offs.
Okay, so if strict balance is a myth, what's the alternative?
The book proposes counterbalancing. It's a much more dynamic, realistic approach. James Patterson used this great analogy in one of his books, The 5 Balls.
Right. Life is like juggling 5 balls. Work, family, health, friends, integrity.
And the key insight is, work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it'll bounce back, you can recover.
But the other 4 family, health, friends, integrity.
Those are glass balls. If you drop one of those, it's likely shattered, irrevocably broken, or at least badly damaged.
Ouch. That puts things in perspective.
It really does, and it guides the counterbalancing strategy. In your personal life, with the glass balls, you need to go short, meaning avoid long, sustained periods of imbalance. Keep those connections strong. Dip out of balance temporarily if needed, but quickly restore it.
Protect the glass balls.
At all costs.
Yeah.
But in your professional life, with the rubber ball, the book says you need to go long.
Meaning?
Make peace with extended periods of being out of balance. Prioritize your one thing relentlessly, even if other, lesser work priorities pile up temporarily, because that focused, sustained effort is what achieves extraordinary results.
So it's about intentional imbalance, knowing what matters most, strategically choosing where to lean in hard and where to pull back momentarily.
Exactly. Being deliberate about where you allow imbalance, all in service of your bigger goals and core values. It's not chaos, it's controlled imbalance.
Okay. Last lie, lie number 6. Big is bad.
Also known as megaphobia, this irrational, often unconscious fear that aiming for big success is inherently bad, that it's too hard, too complicated, brings crushing pressure, or means sacrificing your personal life and happiness.
Why is this lie so damaging?
Because if you secretly fear big success, you'll either avoid pursuing it altogether, or you'll subtly sabotage yourself along the way. You'll pull back right when you should be pushing forward.
But history is full of people thinking big, right?
Absolutely. People have constantly defied what was considered impossible by those who thought small. Columbus sailing west, people figuring out how to breathe underwater, flight, space travel. These weren't achieved by thinking small.
They had audacious visions.
Totally. The book mentions J.K. Rowling envisioning all 7 Harry Potter books, the whole arc, before she wrote the first chapter. Or Sam Walton planning his estate for a massive future business to minimize inheritance taxes before Walmart was even huge. He saved his family billions later on. That's thinking big from the start.
Thinking at the scale of generations almost.
Right. And it's not just about business or money. Thinking big drives incredible social impact, too. Think of MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Started by one woman, Candace Lightner, after her daughter was killed.
Yes, in 1980. Her vision was huge. Stop drunk driving. And MADD has saved over 300,000 lives since then. Or Ryan Hriljak, the 6-year-old boy who wanted to bring clean water to Africa.
Ryan's Well Foundation.
Now helped over 750,000 people get clean water. Or Derek Kayongo starting the Global Soap Project, recycling hotel soap to fight child mortality, hundreds of thousands of bars distributed. These huge impacts started with someone thinking big, envisioning a different future.
And then focusing on the one thing to make it happen.
Exactly. This ties into Carol Dweck's amazing research on mindsets.
Growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
Right. A growth mindset tends to think big, believes abilities can be developed, embraces challenges, learns from failure. A fixed mindset believes abilities are static, avoids challenges, fears failure, sets artificial limits.
And the crucial part is mindsets can change.
Yes, that's the hopeful message. You can cultivate a growth mindset. Scott Forstall at Apple, when building the secret iPhone team, specifically looked for growth-minded people. He wanted those willing to struggle, to learn, to persevere for something huge, something they'd remember the rest of our lives.
So the conclusion is,
big thoughts are essential, but big thoughts go nowhere without bold action. To achieve big, you have to think big, ask big questions, and then critically act boldly on your one thing. Don't let megaphobia hold you back. 3. The simple path to productivity. The truth unveiled.
okay, we've just dismantled 6 pretty common, pretty powerful lies that can keep us stuck. So now, how do we actually cut through all that, cut through the noise and the confusion, and find our actual one thing? What's the practical tool?
This is where the centerpiece of the book comes in, the focusing question. It's presented as the compass, the tool you use to find that single point of maximum leverage.
The question that guides you.
Precisely. And it sounds simple, but its power is pretty profound. Are you ready for it?
Lay it on me.
What's the one thing I can do? Pause there. Such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary.
Okay, say that again slowly. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary?
That's it. The book argues that life itself is basically a series of questions we ask ourselves, and the quality of our answers, which shape our lives, depends directly on the quality of our questions.
Like Voltaire said, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers.
Exactly. Or Sir Francis Bacon. A prudent question is one half of wisdom. Indira Gandhi said, "The power to question is the basis of all human progress." Great questions really are the fastest path to great answers. They cut through the clutter.
It makes me think of that poem, My Wage, by J.B. Rittenhouse, the part about bargaining with life for a penny and life paying no more.
However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. Yeah.
But then the realization that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. It's this powerful idea that the questions we ask ourselves really shape our reality, our potential.
Absolutely. The focusing question is designed to make sure your first step, your focus, is powerful and aligned with that potential, not just a random penny.
So let's break down that question. Every word seems important.
It is. Each part is deliberate. What's the one thing that forces singularity? No lists, just one.
Resisting the urge to name 5 things.
Right. Then I can do. This is critical. It's an embedded command for possible action. It's not should do, could do, would do. Those are passive aspirational. Can do demands you identify something actionable now.
Like Shel Silverstein's poem about woulda, coulda, shoulda's running away from one little did.
Perfect. Action beats intention. And then the last part, such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary. This is the leverage test.
Finding the first domino.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not just looking for any single action. You're looking for the one that unlocks the chain reactions, simplifies the path forward, maybe even makes other tasks irrelevant. It's the ultimate strategic shortcut through focus.
The book also has that matrix for framing questions, right? To make sure it's a great question.
Yeah, the great question matrix. It helps avoid weak questions, like small and specific questions. What can I do to increase sales 5% this year? They're okay, but usually lead to incremental change, not breakthroughs.
Small and broad, what can I do to increase sales is even worse, too vague.
Right. And big and broad, what can I do to double sales, lacks the specific focus needed for action. The sweet spot, where extraordinary results live, is big and specific.
Like, what's the one thing I can do to double sales in 6 months such that by doing it?
Precisely. Big ambition, specific target, and the leverage criterion. It forces strategic thinking, not just wishful thinking.
Okay, so you ask a great question. How do you find a great answer?
Well, a great answer is often a new answer. It's a leap beyond current thinking. So the first step is research. Dig into the best available knowledge, study the highest achievers, the role models in that area.
So if you don't know the answer to your focusing question?
Your immediate one thing is to go find the answer. This means benchmarking, seeing what others have done successfully, and trending, understanding where things are heading.
Because the best answer might be something new.
Exactly. It will likely be original for you. Which means, and this is important, you'll probably have to reinvent yourself somehow to implement it. A new answer almost always requires new behavior, new skills, maybe new relationships. Be ready to change.
It's not just finding the answer. It's becoming the person who can do it.
That's a great way to put it. And this focusing question naturally leads into a really powerful habit the book calls goal setting to the now.
Okay, explain that. Goal setting to the now.
It's a method to connect your biggest long-term purpose directly to your most immediate priority. It builds that bridge from the distant future right back to what you need to do right now.
Like those Russian nesting dolls, the Matryoshka dolls.
Exactly the analogy they use. Your one thing right now is the smallest doll nested inside your one thing for today, which is inside this week's, this month's, this year's, your 5-year goals, all the way up to your big someday goal.
It shows how small, focused actions build up to something huge if they're aligned.
Perfectly aligned. The book walks you through the full cascade of questions. You start with your someday goal, then ask, based on my someday goal, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years? Then, based on my 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this year?
And you keep drilling down, month, week, day.
Until you finally ask, based on my goal for today, what's the one thing I can do right now? It ensures every single action is a direct, leveraged step towards that ultimate vision.
And there's research supporting this kind of process focus.
Yes, strong research. Psychologists studied students. Those who visualized the process needed to get an A, like picturing specific study sessions, performed significantly better than those who just visualized the outcome just seeing the A on their paper.
So focusing on the steps beats just dreaming about the result.
It engages strategic thinking, not just wishful thinking. It counters that common planning fallacy, where we underestimate the effort needed. And the final critical piece of this is actually writing down your goals.
Does that really make a difference?
A huge difference, according to research by Dr. Gail Matthews. Her 2008 study found people who wrote down their goals were almost 40% more likely to achieve them.
Wow. Just writing them down gives you a 40% boost.
Around 39.5%, yeah. But here's the real kicker. Linking back to accountability, those who not only wrote them down but also sent progress reports to friends?
Let me guess.
Yeah.
Even higher.
Astonishingly higher. They were 76.7% more likely to succeed, nearly double the effectiveness just by adding that layer of sharing progress.
Okay, that's powerful. Write it down. Share your progress.
It solidifies commitment, provides external motivation.
All right, so you know your one thing. You set goals back from the future to now. Yeah. How do you actually execute this in your daily life? This brings us to time blocking, right?
Yes. The book calls time blocking productivity's greatest power tool. And it challenges you to think about your current time management system by its results.
Like, are you running a $10,000 a year system or a $1,000 plus system?
Exactly. It's provocative, but it forces you to assess how effectively you're using your most valuable, non-renewable resource, time. Are you investing it or just spending it?
So what do the most productive people do?
They don't just hope they get to their top priority. They deliberately, rigorously devote maximum time to being productive on their top priority, their one thing.
Through time blocking.
Through time blocking. And then, this is crucial, protecting those blocks with a vengeance. Like Alexander Graham Bell said, concentrate all your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. Time blocking creates that focus.
So what are the key time blocks we should be scheduling?
The book highlights 3 essential ones. First, and most important, time block your one thing.
How much time?
A significant chunk. At least 4 hours daily, ideally. And preferably first thing in the morning when your willpower is highest, before the day's chaos hits.
4 hours just for the one thing. That's a lot.
It is. But that's what extraordinary results require. And think of it as event time, not clock time. Like a dairy farmer doesn't stop at 5 p.m. if the cows aren't milked. You work until the task, or a significant chunk of it, is done, or your block ends.
Okay, block one thing. What's block 2?
Time block your planning time. This is maybe an hour each week. You use it to review your bigger goals, annual, monthly, and then use the focusing question to identify your most important priority for the coming week. Then you schedule your one thing block for that week.
So you're time blocking time to time block, essentially.
Exactly. It keeps your priorities sharp and aligned week after week. And the third essential block.
Break time.
Time block, your break time. Yes, this isn't a luxury, it's critical. You need breaks to recharge willpower, prevent burnout, maintain energy and focus. Short, regular breaks actually increase overall productivity. Don't skip them.
Okay, so block the one thing, planning time and breaks. But the real challenge is sticking to it, right? Protecting that time.
That is the absolute key. What separates planning from achieving is protecting your time block. You have to adopt the mindset that these blocks are sacred. They can't be moved unless it's a true, genuine emergency. It's a non-negotiable appointment with your most important work.
But the world conspires against that, doesn't it? People interrupt, bosses demand things.
It does. So the book offers practical tactics. When someone tries to book over your block or pull you into something unscheduled, you can say, politely but firmly, "I'm sorry, I already have an appointment at that time." Offer alternatives.
What about high-level requests? Your boss, a key client.
You might have to say yes, but you can negotiate the timing. Absolutely, I can get that done. If I have it to you by suggest a later realistic time, would that work? Often they just need assurance it'll get done, not necessarily right this second.
And if you absolutely have to move a block.
The rule is, if you erase, you must replace. Immediately reschedule it for another dedicated slot. Don't just let it disappear. You also need to sweep for minds.
Meaning distractions.
Yes. Turn off phone notifications, close email, shut down the browser, stock your workspace with snacks and drinks so you don't have to leave your bunker. Eliminate temptations. Your one thing deserves 100% focus.
And tell people.
Yes, enlist support. Let colleagues, family know you're unavailable during your block time. Ask for their understanding and cooperation. Most people will respect it if you communicate clearly.
It really comes back to saying no, doesn't it? Like that Bill Cosby quote.
I don't know the key to success, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody. It's so true. Saying no to the many less important things is what allows you to say a powerful, focused yes to your one thing. You decide your priorities. FAR. Unlocking possibilities, commitments, and avoiding thieves. Okay, so we have the concepts, the tools, but to really make this stick, to achieve those extraordinary results consistently, the book says you need to make 3 fundamental commitments to your one thing.
Commitments beyond just understanding the ideas.
Exactly. These are the bedrock principles for sustained success. The first one is follow the path of mastery.
Mastery. That sounds intimidating. Like you have to become the absolute best in the world.
Not necessarily about being the best, but about committing to continuous improvement. The book defines mastery more as a path you go down instead of a destination you arrive at.
Ah, okay. It's a process, not an endpoint.
Right. It's a continuous journey of learning, practicing, refining. And when you choose to master the right thing, your one thing, it creates immense leverage, making everything else easier.
This connects to the 10,000-hour rule idea, right? From Anders Ericsson's research.
Absolutely. His 1993 research on expert performance is foundational here. He studied elite performers, violinists, chess players, athletes, and found this consistent pattern of deliberate practice over many years.
The elite violinist had over 10,000 hours by age 20.
Exactly. And if you translate that to a work context, 10,000 hours breaks down to roughly 3 hours of deliberate practice every single day for years. Or, thinking about work days, about 4 hours a day for 250 work days a year.
That sounds very familiar, like the recommended time block for your one thing.
Precisely. It aligns perfectly. But Erickson also warned about the OK plateau. Joshua Foer wrote about this. With typing, people get reasonably good at something, hit an acceptable skill level, and then they just stop improving.
They plateau because they stop consciously practicing.
Right. Mastery requires continually upping the goal, pushing beyond that plateau, challenging your current limits. It's about staying the forever apprentice, like Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, wanting to be buried in his white belt to signify perpetual learning.
Okay, commit to mastery. What's the second commitment?
Move from E, entrepreneurial, to P.
Purposeful.
E to P. Explain that.
The E approach is relying just on your natural talent, your energy, your raw effort. It can get you started, maybe lead to some initial success, feel very dynamic.
But it has limits.
It inevitably leads to hitting a ceiling of achievement. You keep working harder and harder in the same way, but you stop getting better results. You hit a wall, get frustrated, maybe burn out. It's reactive.
So the P approach is different, completely. P stands for purposeful. It means being committed to strategic, continuous growth, especially when you hit that ceiling. Instead of just grinding harder, you pause. You ask, okay, what are my options now? You use the focusing question to find the next different thing you should do to break through.
So it might mean learning a new skill
Mm-hmm.
or finding a new system.
Exactly. Actively seeking better models and systems, being open to new ways of thinking, acquiring new skills, maybe even finding new mentors or collaborators who can help you leap over that ceiling. It might feel unnatural because it pushes your comfort zone, but that's how you keep growing towards extraordinary results. It's about strategy and systems, not just effort.
Makes sense. Mastery E to P. What's the third commitment?
The third, and arguably the one that holds it all together, is live the accountability cycle.
Accountability. Taking ownership.
Complete, radical ownership of your outcomes. Understanding that your actions directly determine your outcomes, and critically, that those outcomes then provide feedback to inform your next actions. It's this constant feedback loop that drives success.
No blaming circumstances or other people.
None. Accountable people absorb setbacks, see them as data, persevere, and keep pushing forward, always adjusting their actions based on the results. The book argues it's the most powerful commitment of all.
And one of the best ways to foster this is
find an accountability partner, a mentor, a trusted peer, or ideally a coach. Remember Dr. Gail Matthews' research again?
yeah, sending progress reports to friends nearly doubled success rates.
Exactly. 76.7% more likely to succeed. And Erickson's research on elite performers, they all seek out teachers and coaches constantly.
Why is a partner or coach so effective?
They provide objective feedback you might miss yourself. They create an expectation for progress, which is highly motivating. They offer support and challenge. They help you stay on the path to mastery and make that crucial shift from just being busy, E, to being strategically productive. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone at the absolute top of their game who doesn't have coaches or key accountability partners.
Okay, those three commitments sound crucial. But even with those, things can still go wrong. The book talks about thieves that steal our productivity, right?
Yes, 4 common thieves that can sneak in and undermine even the best intentions and plans. The first one, and we touched on this earlier, is the inability to say no.
It comes up again and again. It's that important.
It really is. Someone once said, one yes must be defended over time by 1,000 no's. When you say yes to something new, you have to realize you're implicitly saying no to something else. Maybe time for your one thing, maybe family time, maybe even sleep.
Like that Sidney Howard quote. One half of knowing what you want is knowing what you must give up before you get it.
Beautifully put. To succeed big, you have to go small. And going small means saying no a lot. Saying no to good opportunities, tempting distractions, other people's agendas.
Steve Jobs is the ultimate example here, right?
Yeah.
Cutting Apple products from 350 down to 10.
Exactly. That's 340 no's in just 2 years. He famously said focusing isn't about saying yes, it's about saying no. He knew that kind of extreme subtraction was necessary for extraordinary results.
But saying no can be hard, socially.
It can. Seth Godin offers some great ways to do it respectfully. You can say no clearly and promptly. You could redirect the person to someone else who might be better suited. Or you can politely prompt them to find their own creative solution. The point is, learning to say no strategically isn't about being unhelpful. It's about protecting the space to deliver on your most important yes, your one thing.
Okay, thief number 1. Can't say no. What's number 2?
Fear of chaos.
Chaos. What does that mean here?
Well, when you focus intensely on your one thing, other, less important things inevitably get put aside. Emails pile up, the house might get messy, other projects might stall. It can start to feel chaotic, like things are imploding around the edges.
And that feeling makes you want to jump back to multitasking, to put out the small fires.
Exactly. That fear of chaos can pull you away from your focused work. But the book says, basically, it's a package deal. When you're striving for something great, some temporary chaos is unavoidable.
So you just have to accept it.
Make peace with it. Understand it's a temporary side effect of deep focus. Learn to manage the essential parts of the chaos, but trust that your work on the one thing will eventually generate the resources, the time, money, systems to deal with the everything else later. Don't let the discomfort of temporary mess derail your progress.
Okay, manage the unavoidable chaos. Thief number 3.
Poor health habits. This seems obvious, maybe, but it's amazing how often it gets sacrificed in the name of productivity.
Yeah, pulling all-nighters, grabbing junk food.
Right. But as the book asks, if you don't take care of your body, where will you live? Your physical well-being, your energy, your mental clarity, your resilience is the absolute foundation for sustained high performance. You can't achieve your one thing if you're constantly run down.
So what's the plan?
The book outlines a highly productive person's daily energy plan. 5 key areas to energize yourself daily. 1. Meditate or pray for spiritual energy. 2. Eat right, exercise, sleep well for physical energy. 3. Hug, kiss, laugh with loved ones for emotional energy. 4. Set goals, plan, calendar for mental energy. And 5. Time block your one thing for business energy.
It covers all bases.
And the key idea is that when you invest time early in the day energizing yourself across these dimensions, it creates this powerful momentum. You have an energized start that pulls you through the day rather than constantly trying to catch up or running on fumes.
Invest in energy first. Makes sense. And the final thief, number 4.
Environment doesn't support your goals. This includes both the people around you and your physical surroundings.
How do people affect your focus?
Oprah said it well. Surround yourself only with people who are going to lift you higher. If you're around people who drain your energy, dismiss your goals, or constantly distract you, it's incredibly hard to maintain focus.
And conversely, high-achieving friends can boost you.
Research supports this. One study showed students with high-achieving friends saw gains in their own grades and motivation. Being around people with a growth mindset who are striving for success reinforces your own drive and belief. They become accountability partners, sources of inspiration.
And the physical environment.
Just as critical. Think about all the sight and sound thieves, constant email pop-ups, news alerts, noisy colleagues, a cluttered desk. These things constantly chip away at your ability to even get to your focused time block.
So you need to clear the path.
Exactly. Clear the path to success. Proactively eliminate these distractions from the moment you wake up. If checking email first thing derails you, stop doing it. If the news stresses you out, avoid it until later. Find a quiet workspace. When you clear the path, getting into that deep focus becomes much, much easier. Outro.
Wow. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the one thing, the core message from Gary Keller and Jay Papasan just resonates so clearly, doesn't it? Extraordinary results don't come from doing more or multitasking or constant balance.
They come from going small, from relentlessly identifying and then consistently, fiercely acting on your single most important thing. It really is a fundamental shift in how we approach achievement.
And it's not just about productivity, is it? It sounds like it requires this deep faith in your purpose, in your priorities.
It absolutely does. Faith that leads to decisive action. And the ultimate reward they talk about is profound. Living a life without regret. A life where you know you gave your best energy to what truly mattered most to you.
That idea of living without regret, it's powerful. Reminds me of Bronnie Ware's work, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Oh yeah, incredible insights. People wishing they'd let themselves be happier, stayed in touch with friends.
Had the courage to express feelings, hadn't worked so hard at the expense of everything else. It really makes you stop and think.
It does. So the book implicitly asks, what would your older, wiser self tell you right now?
Probably something like, go live fully. Don't be afraid of missing out on the trivial stuff. Live with purpose. Give your absolute all to what matters. And don't give up on your one thing.
Beautifully said. It all boils down to this truth captured in that great little anecdote about the boy and the puzzle.
The world map puzzle.
Yeah. The dad tears up the world map, gives it to his son, hoping for some quiet time. Minutes later, the son's done. Dad's amazed, asks how.
The boy says?
He saw a picture of a man on the back of the pieces. When I put the man together, the boy said, the world just fell into place.
So success is an inside joke.
Exactly. When you put yourself together, align your purpose, clarify your priorities, apply focused productivity to your one thing each day, your world starts to fall into place. You are the first domino. Get yourself right, and the rest follows.
That's a fantastic final thought. So after this whole deep dive, after exploring the power of singular focus and all the lies and thieves that try to stop us, here's the question for you listening. What's your one thing you can do right now, today, to start using the one thing in your life such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary?
Take a moment. Really think about it. Find that answer.
And then do it. Onward.